just weeks before last year's midterm elections, Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold's office sent mailers to more than 31,000 foreign nationals throughout the state, urging them to register to vote. Now, they claim that this was an honest mistake, but since this act was uncovered, Griswold's office has focused more on damage control than answering questions that could get to the bottom of any investigation to answer the question, how did this happen? And why do these so-called honest mistakes always seem to benefit Democrats? Well, joining me now to discuss this is J. Christian Adams, president of Public Interest Legal Foundation, which has led the way on filing Freedom of Information Act request with the state of Colorado. J. Christian Adams, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you, Tony, for having me.
All right, so provide a little more background on what happened here in Colorado.
So the Colorado Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, who also happened to be on the ballot, I might add, last year in the November election, just before the election sent out mailers to 31,000 non-citizens, inviting them to register to vote. Now, of course, they're not eligible to vote, but she sent out these mailers. It was eventually discovered they went to non-citizens, and that's pretty much all we know because they're not really forthcoming about what happened after that.
So, but they immediately tried to fix this by going to the local counties and saying, hey, we inadvertently mailed these people, so we want to make sure they don't vote. Here are their names. My tongue is in my cheek.
Right. I wish they had done that. That would have been the right course of action, is to put on be on the lookout alert to the counties of these names in each county and saying, whatever you do, don't register them to vote. Instead, what Jenna Griswold, the Secretary of State, did was not tell the counties answers to their questions, not give them the names, but instead say, oh, we'll take care of everything here in Denver, don't you worry. And whenever the Public Interest Legal Foundation asked for communications and public records, we found the counties were upset that they weren't getting these names because they didn't know what to look out for. And we don't know whether or not any of them registered to vote because they're hiding the names from the public. They're just saying, don't worry about it. We've taken care of everything. But I don't think you can trust an election official who sends invitations to vote to a Russian or Canadian citizen really deserves a lot of leeway.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not the expert on this, but a foreign national registering to vote is a federal crime. And so if you're working to cover this up, are they not aiding in the covering up of a crime?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons they might have decided to not be forthcoming, because there's such sympathy, particularly in offices like Jenna Griswold's, for anybody who makes, shall we say, a mistake on a form. We don't want to punish anybody. They basically shut down election crime enforcement in large parts of the country, and I suspect that's probably what's going on here to some degree, is they wouldn't dare want to do anything to any of these people who registered to vote.
And in your request for information, as you said, that the only thing you've been able to get out of them is looks like a paper trail suggesting they were scrambling to cover this thing up. Any idea, was this intentional? Was it inadvertent? I mean, what do we know about what prompted this?
Well, we know that somebody intentionally decided to mail a list without looking at all the facts, the fact being, hey, this guy's from China, or this guy's from Paraguay. So they intentionally decided to mail a list without doing any due diligence or even the basics, inviting foreign nationals to register to vote. If they gave us the records, we would be able to see what the motives were, who screwed up, what was done to fix it. But see, that's one of the problems with government these days, Tony, is when they make mistakes, they don't like the public to see the details, and they don't like the public to hold anybody accountable.
So can we anticipate that there might be some legal action here to try to get this information from them?
Well, for sure, because we need to know whether any of these people registered to vote and voted. Remember, people could be deported for voting when they're not eligible to. When they fill out their green card naturalization forms, they could get deported if they registered to vote. So maybe that's one of the reasons Griswold didn't tell the public the full story because she doesn't want anybody deported. Whatever. The mistake was made, atone for it, figure out how to prevent it from happening again.
But even if you got an invitation to register, granted, shouldn't have gotten it, but if they got it and they registered, they should have known that they're not an American citizen and they cannot vote in federal elections. J. Christian Adams, we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you another question. Generally speaking, are you encouraged by the progress that's being made in many states across the nation to address election integrity?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been incredible strides legislatively in states. Not all states, Tony. I mean, you still have, Michigan is Michigan. It doesn't have a governor that will sign anything. But in a lot of states, good things are happening. Good things are happening in the courts. We held Delaware to account to not have unconstitutional early voting and mail voting. Courts have made some good decisions in places, incredible cases like in Wisconsin and so forth. So there's progress being made. It's a long, hard fight. Lots of forces on the other side, but what else is new?
Well, I want to commend you for the work that you guys are doing. It's great. It's important because it's restoring confidence in our system of elections. J. Christian Adams, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tony.